So we're here. We built the Xray XB8 21. This is obviously the Nitro car, and we're gonna compare it to last year's XB8 20. There's honestly not a whole bunch that's changed. It's honestly a little bit of just odds and ends, and we're gonna run through that quick and kind of give you our consensus of the build, how it went, and possibly what you should update if you are building a 21 from another car, or maybe updating your 20 to a 21. So let's get right into it. We'll take the bodies off of each. This one's Velcroed on, so it always gets me. This one comes off super easy. So the big changes between the XB8 21 and the XB8 20 is gonna be a couple things. So inside the pillow balls here, there's going to be a top hat bushing. Now with the XB8 21, you get the graphite version, which is gonna be a lot more of like a longevity part. It's gonna be a lot stronger than the stock plastic. It's not gonna groove up as fast. So it is gonna last a little bit longer. On the 20, it was just standard plastic, so you did have to update that to the graphite if you so wanted. The other thing that is gonna change, which this car already has, and this car already has a couple of the updates we talked about, like the graphite pillow ball caps, it already has. This car does have the graphite servo saver and bell crank setup. The new 21 comes with that right out of the box as well. So kind of a more longevity update again, a little bit stronger. It's not going to twist and flex as much, so you will get a little bit more precise steering without having to crank down that servo saver nut. The other big change though, this is probably the most notable change from the XB8 20 to the 21, is fuel tank position. From what we can tell, and the part numbers, it is the exact same tank. The difference is on the 21, they moved it back about 3 millimeters. So if you look, this is the XB8 20. You can see that the tank is ridiculously close to that servo saver arm. But on this one, you can see that there's definitely a lot larger of a gap. So it just gets the weight back on the car a little bit more. They honestly changed nothing else. Like we measured from the shock tower to the first hole in the center diff on both cars, exactly the same distance from the shock tower to the center diff. So the center diff didn't move back. Nothing else seems to have moved back. So really it's just getting the tank a little bit closer to the center of gravity, a little bit farther back in the car. And that's about it. So they didn't change a whole heck of a lot, but let's talk about things that you could possibly want to upgrade depending on your conditions. If you have an XB8 21 and you kind of want to build it to more like what maybe Ty has or a couple other people. So Ty always does recommend, if you are on a high grip track, especially in high heat, to run the graphite upper arms and the graphite lower arms. They tend to not flex as much and give you a little bit more steering precision, gives you a little bit more feel to the car. The other thing that we always like to upgrade is the aluminum servo horn. This is the non-clamping version. On my car, I put the clamping version on. So the only difference, it has that little screw there just to kind of lock the horn onto the splines of the servo a little bit better. The other thing that they like to do is the graphite top plate. So this is from the XT8, so the Truggy. The difference is you also have to run it backwards. So instead of having the opening towards the outside of the car, the opening goes towards the middle of the car. It does give you a little bit more clearance. The other thing that we didn't really talk about, now talk about the center diff holder, is the new brake cams. On the Nitro cars, it's more of a lobe style brake cam, so it actually has a curvature to it. The previous gen just pretty much had a couple flat spots, and you really didn't engage the brake to the end of it. So now it kind of builds and ramps up a little bit nicer. So that's one thing that did change on this car. Other than that, the only really big thing that we do recommend is, it's hard to see because it's kind of buried down in there, but the 4-shoe clutch setup from Xray. It does require the new bell as well. You can see we went with the vented clutch bell. Still 13 tooth, so nothing changes gear ratio wise, but you get 4 shoes now, so there's a lot more tunability with the clutch. You can really play around with the either shoe material, how hard or how soft you go on that, or you do have 3 different spring options as well on how early or late the clutch engages.
There's also a couple of different weights of the shoe for the 4-shoe.
Correct, yeah. And the other big advantage is when you go to the 4-shoe clutch. This is something that doesn't really happen in the industry, like no other brand that I am aware of does this. But the clutch bell actually has 3 bearings instead of 2. So you get 2 bearings on the rear end of the clutch bell supporting it, so when the shoes engage, if you don't have all the same weight of springs or shoes, it can kind of throw the bell off a little bit, and it really does play some havoc in those rear clutch bearings. So now they support that with 2 bearings instead of just 1. So kind of neat. Is there anything else I missed, Captain Xray?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
I think the only other thing that you changed on your car is Lunsford titanium, which we've talked about that in previous videos. So he has the screws and turnbuckles in Lunsford titanium. The only other thing he's done on his car is he has these 0 rebound shocks from Xray, which definitely does help kind of tame the car down a little bit, makes it more precise again. It really helps kind of just lock the car in, make it so it doesn't move around as much. And you can usually tell by the caps. The caps are an emulsion style cap, and they're a little bit deeper than the standards. But you do change cap bodies, and you actually get a whole new set of shocks if you buy the 0 rebound set. Just make sure if you are buying it for a buggy, you buy the front set and the rear set, because they do come as a front pair or a rear pair. So don't buy the same part number twice unless you have 2 cars.
Yeah, you can't just do the caps. You have to do the bodies with the cap, because the top of the body is actually machined out larger as well as the cap. So the advantage to it is that you can now put the bladder inside the cap when you place the cap on, versus having to put the bladder on the body and then screw the cap on with the standard kit ones.
Yeah, because these ones, they actually fit. There's the machine threads don't go down all the way. The actual bladder has a recess in the cap for it, so it's a little bit different. They make sure you get a good
sorry, I got that reversed. It's the other way around.
Sorry. The standard kit, you can put the bladders in the caps. The 0 rebound, you have to put the bladder on the body and then thread the cap on.
Well, it allows you to, so that you can then ensure that you're not getting, that you're getting that separation, and then not getting that last little bit of air pocket that creates the rebound.
Cap on. No, and that totally makes sense. So the only other thing that has really changed is a couple more screw holes on the chassis for weights.
That's right.
That's it.
So the 21 allows you to add ballast weights from the round ones that I'm sure a lot of on-road guys will be familiar with.
Yeah, so you can see the back of this chassis has 1, 2, and then a couple down the middle. So you have a couple more weight options, and this one just doesn't. So you get a couple more weight options, and then if we flip it over, so you see the bottom side, you can definitely tell all the extra holes that you do get. So kind of neat, something different. Still no quick access front and rear diffs on these cars. The Xrays always did have quick access center diffs though, which is a huge positive. Even if they had just a quick access front diff like we were talking about the other day, that'd be a huge win. But hopefully for the 21, that's kind of the chatter, or the 22, sorry, on the group and the team pages for Xray, that the 21 possibly might have it. Or
22.
Or our 21, what am I doing? So 22 might have it. So here's to hoping, cross our fingers, hopefully just a bulkhead, and you can update your 21 to a 22. But
so, any gripes on your build on the XB8 21 here?
So the E-car went like lickety split, no problem, not one lick of issues. The Nitro car, there was one issue. You didn't get enough fuel tubing out of the box. Jeremy, the other gentleman that built one, said the exact same thing. He's like, there's not enough fuel tubing. So I bought extra fuel tubing to make sure that I had enough for my pressure line and the regular line. And yeah, it kind of was like a little bit of a pet peeve. This is like a little bit. You give everything else. They give you air filter oil. I totally would have been good with no air filter oil and extra fuel line. It's too much to ask. I guess we'll see. But thank you everyone so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. And we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.